Good day and welcome to the Remote Experience for Young Engineers and Scientists program known as REYES. My name is Giovanna Gennard and I'm the co-founder and co-chair of the REYES program, and I will serve as your host for today's lecture, Meet ChatGPT, Your AI Learning Buddy, featuring Helen Crompton. Today's discussion offers us insights into ChatGPT, which can be an amazing learning buddy. This presentation will explain what ChatGPT is and strategies for how you can use it to help you learn. Throughout the webcast, you may submit questions through the Q&A box on your Zoom screen. And then following Dr. Crompton's lecture, we will answer as many of your questions as time allows. It is now my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, who, by the way, has been presenting every year since we started. Dr. Helen Crompton is the Executive Director of the Research Institute for Digital Innovation and Learning, known as RIDIL, at ODU Global. And she's also a professor of instructional technology at Old Dominion University. She's the director of the Virtual Reality Lab at ODU and draws from 30 years in education and a PhD in educational technology and mathematics education from University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Dr. Crompton has received numerous awards in the USA and also in her home country, England, for her work in technology integration, including the Chev Award for the Outstanding Professor of Virginia. So that's the highest honor for any professor in our state. She's a consultant for various governments and bilateral and multilateral organizations, such as the United Nations and the World Bank on educational technology topics. She is also a consultant for multiple organizations such as the International Society for Technology in Education, known as ISTE. She's listed in Stanford University's list of the top 2% of scientists in the world and has published more than 150 articles on technology integration. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Crompton to REYES. Welcome.
Hello, thank you for the introduction, and it's wonderful to be here. Great topic, meeting ChatGPT, your AI learning buddy, and I will be showing you today exactly kind of what is ChatGPT and how you specifically can use it. So, the big question. First of all, what is ChatGPT? So ChatGPT is actually just a chatbot. I'm saying just a chatbot, but you'll realize in a little bit it's kind of a bit extra. So on the right of the screen there, you can see, a chatbot, a traditional one doing its thing. Like you go onto a website, oh, I'm interested in buying a watch. You type into the little box and it comes back with, oh, I can help you. And it's in a way as if you're talking to someone, but not exactly. You kind of know you're talking to a computer because it doesn't always answer questions and it only can do certain things like help you with what film to watch, what watch to buy, things like that. So the way I think of ChatGPT is it's still a chatbot, but it's on a super higher level. So you've got the basic chatbots where you go into websites, like I said, and just use those. They're kind of the ones we were always familiar with. But then ChatGPT, and I don't know whether you recognize that character there, but it's Jarvis from Iron Man. And those that might be Star Trek fans might be familiar with Data. So these are computers in the form of a person, and characters from those programs are kind of talking backward and forward to that computer. And so to me, it's like that. ChatGPT is like having a conversation with an expert. So let's dive into a little bit more then about what that looks like. So we can ask questions to that expert. And now you're all familiar with Google, I'm sure, the home of all the answers. Well, we type in normally there, how do electrical circuits work? And it comes out with not actually the answer exactly, but it comes out with places to find the answer. Now, this has been the same now. Google's had it the same for the last 20 years. And in fact, it's been shown by research that literally only half the time do people find what they want. And the only thing that's kind of changed in the last 20 years is there's more advertisements at the top. So people can pay and have their website, their thing pushed higher up the list. So we have to kind of scroll down past those to actually find the other websites that are more relevant, maybe. So that's what Google does. We ask a question and it says, here's the website, here's where you might like to go and look. So what does ChatGPT do? So ChatGPT looks like this. What you have there on the middle, in fact, I've actually cut it off. So I'm going to share my screen and show you what ChatGPT looks like in real time. So here we go. This is ChatGPT. So I'm going to ask ChatGPT the same question that we asked Google. How do, and can you see me typing in the bottom there in the bar? Electrical circuit. Oh, and look, I have a spelling mistake. And you see how there it's going, oh, we'll let you know you've got a spelling mistake and I can choose and correct it if I need to. So we don't have to worry about things like that. We can have help. So how do electrical circuits work? And let me put my question mark there. Now, before I click return or that green button to show you what it does, I'd like to just quick show you the screen. So this is the unpaid version of ChatGPT that was open to everybody. You can see on the left there, I have various things that I've asked it before. This is my history. So like in the last 30 days, I asked these things, 7 days, yesterday, I wanted examples. And today I've also asked for other things. So I can jump back to these as wanted. So when we actually type into Google and ask a question, you know, can you find electrical circuits? It doesn't take us back to that conversation later. We can't kind of look back at it. It just goes once we're finished. But this is nicer because it does that. But I'm going to type, I've got the question there, and I'm going to hit the green arrow there, send message. And let's see what ChatGPT does with that question. Oh, so immediately there, it's starting to type. So how do electrical circuit work? And it kind of nicely chunks information. It's scrolling up there, but it's giving us that answer. So rather than sending us out to a website, it's telling us specifically what the answer is. We'll let it carry on for a little bit there. If I wanted to stop it beforehand, you see, oh, this regenerate response was stop. Kind of, you know, stop what you're doing. So I can also stop it if I want it to stop at any point. But it's given us a kind of nice, lengthy, clear answer there. What's nice about ChatGPT is it's given us directly the answer, but it's conversational. Do you remember like Jarvis, where we can ask back and forth? So like asking this expert person, how do electric circuits work? It tells us, but then we might go, oh, power source. Tell me, I'm going to carry this conversation on. Tell me more about power source. So can you see up here where I saw number 1 power source? I can ask it a bit more. And I'll send it off on its way again. Sometimes it takes a second there holding while it's thinking, or usually, I say it's thinking, but usually it's just the internet busy. And it tells us more. So what it's done is it's remembered the conversation beforehand, and it's just carrying on that conversation. So I didn't have to give it any more details like power source from electric circuits. I can just go straight in. And I'm going to stop it at this point. Stop generating. There we go. Click the button. Now, if I want to ask it something completely different, it's like saying to the person, okay, we've finished that conversation. I want to go to a new conversation now. I can just hit new chat and ask something else. Like, what are the best dogs to own? Very kind of biased, but I'm just showing you an example of another question there. So it tells us actually, it depends on your lifestyle preferences and needs. It gives us a reminder. It gives us ideas there. Okay, let's see if it's nearly finished. Doesn't show my dog there, so I'm sure it must be wrong somewhere. Oh no, there it is, number 10. So we've got that. So we've gone off on a different conversation about dogs, but I can go back by clicking over here to the electric circuits and carry on this conversation at any time I want. So that's the big difference. So Google tells you where to search on websites. ChatGPT tells you the answer, and you can have a back and forth conversation. So I'm going to switch back now to the slides because I've got a little bit more to tell you about what ChatGPT is. Okay. So what is ChatGPT? So ChatGPT. So what is GPT? And this is important for you to know as you use ChatGPT. So the first part is the G is for generative. And that's actually an easy word. Generative, it creates something. That's what it is. It basically, it creates something. So like we had on the text over the other side about, the engineering, electrical engineering, it told us, it generated text to tell us. You might also recognize other generative AI tools, such as DALL-E 2, where it creates images. So there's a whole kind of new area of AI, which is called generative AI, which is the AI tools that create something for you. Don't just kind of fulfill a product another way. So that's the G for generative. Pre-trained, again, super important to pay attention to. This says it's been trained, it's been given information, and that's what it goes from. So imagine your little brother and sister. You're talking to them and you're constantly giving them information. Your mum and dad are giving them information, other caregivers give them information, school gives them information. So it's kind of, if your brother or sister are learning, this is what ChatGPT has done. And we'll look at what they've been trained on in a second on the next slide. And the last one is T for transformer. Transformer is a type of AI. It's the way the AI has been developed and what it can do. So let's have a look at the pre-trained bit. So like your brother and sister being trained by you telling them things, everybody else, the teachers telling them things, ChatGPT has been trained on a lot of information. In fact, Bing, which is like Google, but Microsoft own it, all the information from the internet on Bing was fed into ChatGPT. It was given all this information. Then it had Wikipedia and a few other things like that. And then you had some people coming along and saying, okay, that's a good answer, labeled it a good answer, or no, that was a terrible answer. Click on cross, but we don't like that. So then it gets to ChatGPT, and you can see an arrow coming out the top there because ChatGPT doesn't stop learning then. It just carries on learning every time we use it and talk to it. And more things are fed in. But it's important to remember again where this information's coming from. So with this, there are limitations. to ChatGPT and what it can do. So there's issues with plagiarism, inaccuracies, bias. Let me show you what that can look like. So plagiarism, and hopefully you'll like the joke there. You know, what do you mean my facts are all wrong? I copied it straight off the internet. So what's happening is, do you remember when I asked ChatGPT the circuits, electrical circuits, and to give me an idea? So it got that from that information across the web. It reached out, and it doesn't just take chunks of information to put in, like, oh, that's a nice paragraph, let's put that in. It doesn't do that. It summarizes across, like, you know, when you explain to your brother or sister how something works, a toaster or whatever, you tell your brother and sister, and if you ask your brother and sister to repeat that information back, they won't repeat it in exactly your words. They kind of, from information they took and perhaps somebody else telling them what a toaster does, they will give you that back as an answer. So in other words, we don't know everywhere where ChatGPT has got that information, because when it summarizes it in, it puts it in different orders. It makes up its own words. Well, words we recognize, but order of words. So it kind of throws it in. So it's kind of, where does all that information come from? So think about that, because we don't always know. And if you need to tell teachers or whoever else where that information's from, the ChatGPT, the version we're looking at today, doesn't do that. So the next one is inaccuracies. Now, this is a very fun one, so I'm going to have to stop and take your time to have a look at this. Inaccuracies and hallucinations. So, according to, what is the world record for crossing the English Channel entirely on foot? So that was my question to ChatGPT. And you might think, English Channel? That's water. How on earth do you cross it on foot? Well, ChatGPT came back and it said, according to the Guinness World Records, the fastest time for crossing the English Channel entirely on foot is 12 hours and 10 minutes. The record was set by George Rife in 2016. It sounds very authoritative. The English Channel is a body of water that separates England from France and is approximately 35 kilometers wide, and it tells you all sorts of things. Well, it's kind of, wow, ChatGPT got that wrong, because it's impossible. That person didn't do it, but it sounds very plausible. So you might get some information and think, yeah, that's true, but it's actually not. So you have to watch out for things like this happening. Especially because that second part where it tells you all about the English Channel is actually very accurate. So do watch out as you're using ChatGPT. Still fact check, like you do when you go on the internet. Still look at this and check to be sure it's absolutely right. So this is sometimes called a hallucination. But it sounds like it's super accurate, but it's hallucinating. So the next one is bias. So bias here is where we're looking at information from the internet. So that information from the internet is biased naturally, for the fact that we really, you know, you have to look at these things. And Gio, can you look at the question answer, please? Because there might be the one there for you want to have a look at. So bias of the internet, all that information that's gone into the internet is hugely biased, because general people have gone on there and answered questions and done things, and we've got to think, okay, they have their reasoning for putting things on the internet. We know it's biased, but that has all gone into ChatGPT, and it shows it ever so often leaning towards certain political parties, or even the fact that, like, gender. It can also show bias that way because a lot of the internet information was older. And at that point, maybe you didn't have professors of technology that were female, probably more men. And so they can sometimes come out. Now, when the creators of ChatGPT designed the program, they tried to remove some of that, but you'll still find some of it. So again, be cautious.
Tom, can you please enable me to answer Q&A, please, and have delete? Thank you.
So, exciting part. How can ChatGPT help you learn? So there are various ways. We've only got a short amount of time here, but hopefully this will spark some ideas. So how can ChatGPT support you learning? It's 24/7 on-demand support. You wake up at 3 a.m. Parents might not like it, but if you have a burning question, you could ask ChatGPT. Doesn't bother about the hour, doesn't go to sleep. It'll explain difficult concepts. It's great for a conversational partner, writing support, self-assessment, brainstorming, and personalizing learning materials. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and demonstrate some of these things for you. So I'm going to come off sharing and share ChatGPT. Okay, this is the exciting bit, being able to show you how specifically you can use it. Okay, moving some things around. Okay, here we go. Right, so picture the scene. Well, first of all, what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to click new chat because I want to start a fresh chat. Oh, look at that. Exceptionally high demand. Please hang tight. Hopefully it's going to let me in a second. There we go. You have patience sometimes and keep asking it. It'll usually correct itself and let you in. So setting the scene, you are about to start a chemistry class. Could be any class. I'm just choosing something. Start a chemistry class. You're a little bit nervous. And you're thinking, okay, I need to be prepared and I need to do a good job on this because I need to pass this chemistry class. Okay, I might say to ChatGPT, please, I could say, I am about to start a chemistry class and I would like some study techniques. Now, this is ChatGPT at its best here. So I'm asking for study techniques. And you might have some great ones, but there's some really, it's worth doing this because there's going to be some extra ones. So it's saying, sure, studying chemistry can be challenging, and with the right techniques, you might be able to get it. And I can see 6, 7. I'm going to wait till it's finished. 8, 9. This is full of ideas here. Stay engaged. Okay, and you might have scanned some of those going past. But, oh, even good look at the end. So I'm going to scan through some of these. Review and preview and take a look at the kind of strategies for how to do it. Taking effective notes, and it will tell you again, this section here tells you how to do that. Practice regularly, and again, it will show you how to do this. So this is a great way to start because you already feel empowered because you've got some ideas on what you can do. So I'm going to ask something else, okay? And I'm going to carry on the conversation because it knows that I'm trying to study, and I'm going to say, what key words do I need to know? And I'm going to put a question mark. And remember, I've not told it anything else. So let's see what it does. See if it knows I'm still talking about the chemistry. Oh, and it's gone down here. There we go. Now it's very difficult because, as you know, there's many topics in chemistry. So it's kind of, what are you studying? But it's given us some ideas there. And I could say, I could refine it now saying, well, that's great, but I am studying atoms and molecules. Oh, look, it's put it already in for me. Atoms and molecules. Set it going again. And again, I scrolled up, so I have to scroll down to where it is. And there we go. It's going to tell me, because I've asked it, some specific key terms, and then it has these really nice snippets of what each thing is. And what's really handy is you actually copy this off onto your notes, and I highlight the main words. Like if I need to know about intermolecular forces, you know, highlight that. And highlight all these that I perhaps get stuck on. Now you might think, and this is what people get stuck on ever so often, they think, well, how do I copy this off? So the way I do it, I believe there's possibly different ways, is I copy what I want, like I maybe want up to here. I copy it, and I can right click and copy. Or if you want the shortcut, Control and C. And then when I open a Word document, I ask it to paste as plain text. So right click and paste as plain text. Or you can keep it in the normal text and it'll keep kind of a box around like this. So here we are with our initial start to the class. So I'm now in the class. I'm going to start a new chat actually, just so we don't get confused. I'm going to start a new chat. I'm in my class. I'm studying atoms and molecules in chemistry and all these other things. And I get to the periodic table, and it's kind of, my teacher told me what periodic table and the purpose of it was, but I didn't get it. And how many times do we sit in classes? It doesn't matter what age you are, it can still be really tough understanding some things. So what I want to know is, and I'm going to copy this in just for speed. I want to have it, please explain the purpose of the periodic table. And there we go, it's telling us in nice language. Now, this might be similar to the way that, and a very long as well, that the instructor, the teacher told me, and it might be a little bit difficult. So I might say, can you explain this? Can you explain this a little simpler, please? Got to use my language, my pleases and thank yous. Let's have a look. Just thinking about it. Again, all the internet's busy. And can you see how that is just so much easier that it's now explaining it? Yeah? I'll let you have a look at it for a second. Slow down a little bit again. I think the internet's just busy at the moment. But I'm actually going to stop it here. Stop it generating for a moment. Imagine you've got a little brother or sister, a brother that's 5, that really wants to know what you're doing, what you're studying, and you're trying to explain it, but it's hard to find the words. You could ask ChatGPT to help you. Explain this for a 5-year-old. And let's have a look at the language. This should be fun. Taking its time, it's thinking. Okay, and I'm going to talk through it because it is very slow today. So what it'll do, it will literally explain it for a 5-year-old, just very, very, very simply. Also, maybe you're kind of understanding, but you know, you like it a different way. You could also ask it to explain, oh, look at that network error. I'm just going to restart. There we go. It's taking me back to the beginning, but I think it's just very slow today. So I could ask, I'm going to talk through it. Here we go. In fact, there we go. Purpose of the periodic table. Regenerate response. Let's see if it can. There we go. Just a little bit slow. It's a special chart that shows different kinds of building blocks. Sometimes this is helpful for us understanding, actually, if we're really struggling with something. Ask it to explain it to as if it's explaining it to a 5-year-old, and you might go, oh, yeah, that's what it is. So for a bit of fun, and also to help you remember, fun things are actually a really good way to help you remember. You could ask it to explain it in different styles. Like explain. In fact, I'm going to start a new chat. I don't want it to explain it for a 5-year-old again. Explain the periodic table in the style of a rap. Also even choose a specific rapper if you like a rapper or whoever it is, Harry Styles, and it will explain it a different way. Take a look at that. I'm not even going to try and read it because my English accent will sound terrible with this rap, but you can see there there's a great rap coming on. So it's still doing it in the style of a rap, but still giving you the information. Now here is the next part. You're in this chemistry class still. You've told your 5-year-old brother what the periodic table, you've worked out things yourself. You are then asked to do a paper or some type of assignment, and you're really struggling. So, new chat. In my chemistry class, I have to do a, what do I want? A paper, a short paper on atoms and molecules. Let's go with that. Atoms and molecules. I am struggling to choose what my paper will be about. Can you help? Now look at that for a question, a question mark. That is going beyond just tell me this, tell me that. That's saying, you know, look, as my learning partner here, struggling to do this, can you help me? And let's see what it says. And it's having a good think. Happy to help. Here's some suggestions to get you started. Now, what you could do, you could think, okay, chemical bonding, I'd like to do that, but I like this type of thing, but I don't like that. And you can go back and forth again with ChatGPT, asking for all sorts of things there. So that is another way. Now, the final way I'm going to show you before we finish for today is you have come to the end of this chemistry class and you're about to have the exam. Or you might have an exam partway through the class. It can help with both. I would like some practice questions on atoms, molecules for my high school chemistry class. So let's have a look at the way I've said that. I would like some practice questions, practice exam questions on atoms and molecules for my high school chemistry class. Please give me 5 questions. I can be very specific in what I want. Okay, so let's set it going. Now look at this. I could also ask ChatGPT, give me multiple choice if I want. But that first one there, what is the atomic number of an element that has 17 protons and 8 neutrons in its nucleus? So I could, the answer to question 1 is, and you say what the answer is. And then when it tells you whether it's right or wrong, you could say, how did I go wrong? Please help me with this question. So it's not just giving those practice questions, it will also listen to the answer you give back and give you feedback on whether you've got it right. Okay, I am going to stop sharing here. I'm going to come back to the screen to have any questions that we might have at the moment. I'll just put the slides up because I'd like to use the rest of this time to find out what those questions are. And let's have a look. Let me click on the next. Remember, rubbish in, rubbish out. Make sure your prompts are good. And ChatGPT isn't the only one that can do these things. We've got also Bard from Google, Anthropic from Claude, Amazon Code Whisperer. There's lots of other things out there. ChatGPT seems to be the winner at the moment, but these others are coming in close. So let me stop sharing. And over to you for questions, please.
Sounds great. That was wonderful, Helen. Thank you so much. So we do have a few questions from the audience, and for those attending, please feel free to continue sending them via the Q&A box. On my screen, it's at the bottom. On yours, it may vary, but go ahead and submit them, and we would be happy to answer as many as we can during our time together. The first is there any topic you wouldn't recommend to use ChatGPT as a learning buddy?
Ooh, great question. Not one I've had before either. Any topic? I don't think there is. I think any topic, whether I want to know anything about any subject, I would probably ask, but remembering that always check, because it can hallucinate. So I don't always consider it everything it says is absolutely right, because it sometimes gets things wrong, but it's a great starting point.
What about if you're trying to learn more about a person in general? Like, I know I love doing genealogy. And so I know, that's a tool that I would like to use in the future to help me with that. But when I did ask them questions regarding myself, if they could write a biography about me, ChatGPT said I was dead.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. That's a funny one. Yes. So any school topic, but yes, in many ways, remembering as well that the ChatGPT at the moment, the version we were using there was only up to 2021. So anything recent that happened, it won't answer those like current event topics. Yeah, so thanks for a reminder on that. So it won't tell you those things. It can tell you all sorts about history, but personal things, and again, as a reminder, we don't want to feed it personal things in about ourselves. We can tell it, oh, we're starting a chemistry class, but you don't need to have all your details.
That's right. I did not tell it that I was still alive.
That's it. ChatGPT doesn't need to know your name, where you live, and all these things, but you can still explain. And you have to remember as well, it's not a person on the other side, it's a computer, although it sounds very listening. But topics like that, very current events, be careful with. Even in the Bard version now, it can still get things wrong with specific people. So do be warned of that.
Yeah, I'm glad you added that detail. And I know that many of our learners right now may not, either some have jobs, but they may not yet be in the corporate world. But I've also learned in the news that it's also, people are asking company members not to perhaps put that company information to help them summarize information or anything. So it's just, again, just like not putting your personal information, just kind of be careful of what you enter as well, right?
That's so true. And imagine, remember when I said before about like telling a little brother or sister, giving them information, you don't want to give them too much information that, they might be able to use for other things. Because remember, ChatGPT is connected to a business, a company, OpenAI and who's connected to Microsoft. So we don't want to give it too much information, especially secret. But for topics, for thinking about school topics and things, the majority it's usually good for. It's not special in one or the other. Mathematics, it can sometimes struggle on, but they're working very quickly on that to try and fix. And they keep having updates for mathematics. But again, always checked with your instructor.
And how great, like you showed us that you could actually do practice questions for exams and have AI truly be your learning buddy. So they're almost like sitting across from you, quizzing you and helping you prepare, which is wonderful.
Yes.
Let me see. So the other question is, how do the engineers know that ChatGPT has had a hallucination, and how do they go about fixing it? And the person is saying, I mean, it's impossible to review for humans, right? To review all the answers given by ChatGPT to the customers. So how do engineers imitate that model or limit that model?
Yes, great question. So we know it doesn't know certain things. So when they create the algorithm that gives the information to the people, they often set in the algorithm, look, if you know it's things that we don't know, give this response about, I don't know, perhaps you need to look different directions or whatever. So it'll answer those. But as well, what it does is you've got to be careful, because even when the people checked it by hand, remember the pre-trained, and we had people doing that, those people might be wrong. People can get things, all sorts of things wrong. So they might have checked the wrong thing. But what's happening now is when people are using ChatGPT, they often have a little thumb sign. And if something's wrong, they can put a little thumbs down. And then that will be flagged by the ChatGPT people or the computer to say, oh, let's check. You know what? A fun tip you can do also, you can get an answer from ChatGPT and you can ask it, can you please check your answer? And if you see something wrong, you can say to it, it looks like that mathematics is wrong or something like that. And it will go back and it'll often say, very sorry, I've just checked and you're correct. It should be this answer. So do ask ChatGPT if it's correct.
So we need to ask ChatGPT to check their own math.
That's it. Although sometimes it might come back and it might not be perfect. It does a very good job at all these things. But again, we just always have to be careful because it's not perfect.
It's such a good point, though, the human error, point that you made earlier, that after all, it is created by human and humans make errors too. So interesting. Yes. The next one is, how do you think AI alignment research will progress in the next few years, specifically OpenAI's approach to super alignment?
It will certainly progress vastly. And there's a lot of information about ChatGPT being banned or things like that. Well, if you think about it, it's already open. There's no way of closing these things. And people have ChatGPT and the way it works in lots of other programs already. And so I've been looking at artificial intelligence for a good few years, in fact, mainly since 2017 now. And the rate it's gone on has been fairly quick, I always thought. But then since ChatGPT has come out, that transformer piece and what it can do now has revolutionized many things. There's so many people using those capabilities to make so many other things, and we might not notice it directly. It's like I complained about Google earlier on, but Google actually, Google search did use, it still does, use two artificial intelligences. It uses what's called RankBrain and BERT. And that's an acronym, BERT. And those things helped us find those websites easier. So now what's happening is, with this new way of AI that can do so much more, people are using it all these different places, but they might have it in what's called the back end. So you might use a program that you've always used, and now it's suddenly better because they're using these systems like Google Translate. If anyone uses that now, it's great. You know, it can translate in real time and do all these things just because it's got AI, and we don't have to know about it. It's just kind of more in the back end helping us work.
It's so great to have access to all these tools nowadays. And
Yes.
does it make a difference if you ask questions with manners? I love that question. So for example, if you say please and thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chloe. That is a really good question. So here's my answer to that. Technically, it will still answer, but we have to remember our manners. And in fact, the research has shown that, you know, like Alexa, when we talk to Alexa, Alexa, do this, Alexa, do that, that what young children were doing as they were growing up is they were replicating that as they interacted with people. So they stopped using language. And in fact, some households where people shouted at Alexa and said, you know, Alexa, do this, and now, and they were actually replicating that with people. So we also have to remember our own manners, that we want to be polite and say please and thank you and things, and it will respond accordingly, but it just keeps us being human. That's it.
Right. And being polite.
Being polite and human.
The next question is regarding chess. How well can ChatGPT play chess?
Ooh, you will have to try it out. And it should be good, but it's not something I've tried, but that would be a really good experiment to have a chessboard and ask. Yes.
A friend who posted that will report back. I'm really curious as well. That was a great one.
That's a good one. Yes.
The next question is, what advice would you give to teachers about how to incorporate ChatGPT in their own classes?
Oh, so I do a lot of this. I work with a lot of teachers, and there's so many ways for teachers to use it. For example, it really revolutionizes the way we teach. So a teacher that always used to give papers or something like that, or have students just respond to something, you can do so much more now with ChatGPT. So a teacher could have you debate a topic, perhaps, with ChatGPT. Imagine you have to, I'm going to, something out of history. Oh, let's go with this one. Let's go for a topic on meat-free diet and arguing for and against. You could have a chat, go to ChatGPT and have a debate and argue that point from what you've learned from class. So your teachers could have you doing all sorts of fun things. But as a teacher, I recommend having students to support them using it, like what I've shown you today as students. That's very empowering to be able to look at things, have it checking your spelling mistakes, have it checking, or even thinking of ideas, or practicing questions, or just being that support on the side as, I didn't understand what the teacher said, please, you know, explain it again. Because sometimes, and I was a student in class that I didn't like to ask questions, I felt embarrassed. So it's important that we're able to have this venue, students are able to have this venue to be able to ask those questions.
I appreciate that, especially when you, like you were telling it to do it in simple language. And so I know, like for me, Spanish is my first language, English is my second. And sometimes when in a classroom environment, it would be very helpful for me to ask for language to be simplified, especially if it's a second language, right? And so yes. I can see how that tool would be great in the classroom. So you have better comprehension of material, but also for many of our attendees in REYES, they know multiple languages. And so when they're hearing information like our presentation today in English, that they can ask for information to be simplified in the future. So
yes, or even extra, ask it to be explained in your home language.
Right.
So yes, whatever language, it's kind of explain that simpler, but then explain it in French, German, whatever your language is. Yes, have it explain it in that language, and it's fairly good at languages.
And we do have just time for 2 more questions. The first is, first they're thanking you for a wonderful presentation, and they would like to know how much memory is needed for ChatGPT and what CPU does ChatGPT use? So it's more of a technical question. I'm not sure if you have the answer, but if you don't, I imagine there's a help page that can give you that information.
Yes, well, what I can tell you that ChatGPT uses an enormous amount of processing, huge, that it actually costs every single ask to ChatGPT costs a lot of money on Microsoft OpenAI side. So we have to remember that. And how much for yourself? So you don't have to worry. When I was using it today and it went slow, it was just the internet. It's very unusual, but maybe with the storms or something at the moment that the internet was running a little slower. But you don't have to worry about the usability if that's what you're thinking. You don't, as a user side, you wouldn't have to think about that.
Our next question, earlier you had explained to us how ChatGPT sources information from the internet. And so the question is, does ChatGPT currently provide citations or links to the websites where they receive that information to generate their answers so that future researchers can verify it?
Yes, really quick answer to that is yes, they do. ChatGPT now, remember it was organized by Microsoft. So now it's in Bing, like the Google, but Microsoft version, it's in Bing. And when it gives the answers, it will highlight which websites it's got that information from. For citations and things, be very careful with ChatGPT because it hallucinates a lot on citations, not those in Bing, but if you ask it to actually give the name of who wrote that, it often goes very wrong. So be careful with citations.
After all, it was actually, completing the swim in the English Channel by foot. So good point.
Yes.
And then the last question we have, and this is more of a request from the audience. So as part of the REYES program, in addition to lectures, we now have a mentoring program. And so people are asking if we could host a mentoring program, which is, it gives the ability of students to participate in a learning experience or research project for 8 weeks with a faculty member. And so I guess there's an open invitation, Helen, if you ever want to hold a mentoring program one summer where they can get to learn more about the ChatGPT function and perhaps engage in some research with you virtually. So that's what the last question was about.
Sounds fun.
Yes. So thank you again so much for being with us today, Helen. It's always wonderful to hear your lectures, and you always leave us with a lot of information and great insights so that we can follow up on our own and keep learning. So thank you so much. I'll say in advance, we look forward to your presentation next year because we love having you. So thank you again for your time today. And thank you again for everybody who joined us. We will see you again tomorrow. All right, take care, everyone. Thanks again.